Hi everybody, Courtney Robinson here today to talk to you about getting out of debt when you are older and you have a middle income. And so this is also for those of you who don't feel prepared for retirement. So how to prepare for retirement when you're over 40. And first of all, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am 51 years old. I met my husband when I was 40 and he was 53. We have been together ever since, but we did not move in together and get married until 4 years ago. We moved in together 5 years ago, got married 4 years ago. And we were both very broke. He actually was in bankruptcy. The only thing I had going for me was good credit. Neither one of us made over $20,000 at the time. His situation was that he had just purchased a business and left his job to run the business and was working part-time. My situation was that I have been a part-time worker and a stay-at-home mom. So things were tough. And at that time, I had not found the Financial Independence Retire Early community. I didn't find it till 2007 or 2017. But what I did understand was the best thing I could do was get out of debt, try to have a good emergency fund, and save. And so I want to tell you how we got from very broke to I want to tell you what we did to getting to where we are extremely comfortable and I will be able to retire early. I always had a goal of retiring at 55. And I will be able to do that. I'm not going to retire well off. I'm still going to probably have to be somewhat frugal, but I will have my time back. And I don't think I could not be frugal because I'm very into simple living, because my values align with environmental reasons to be simple, and also just not feeling that being too consumeristic is not good for the earth. And it takes from those that have less than me by consuming too much of the world's resources. So that's my personal belief system. No matter what you're here for, I just want to say that's kind of where I lie. Number one is you have to change your mindset. If you think you can't, you won't, and you will not be successful. And so what we're trying to get to here is not necessarily millions of dollars, but to be able to retire and not have to worry about what you're going to eat, where you're going to live, and to have some quality of life versus living on Social Security and possibly struggling. So you have to change your mindset. You have to be willing to start to educate yourself and to know that some of these changes, for me personally, were they hard? Yeah, but it was also kind of fun. It felt like a challenge to me. I kind of gamified it. And for a lot of people in the financial independence community, I have found that is much of what they do. They look at it like a game. They look at it like, what do I have to do? How can I make this more efficient? How can I make this thing happen without it being harder on me? And it's kind of a more with less approach. Like, I don't need to have the monthly chocolate and coffee subscription, but I can buy myself a really good, I don't do this, but I'm not a big chocolate person, but a really good high quality chocolate bar at Walmart. You can still buy the fancy ones in the grocery section, maybe the Lindt or whatever, the organic chocolate, and a high quality coffee. It's still much cheaper than going to a fancy coffee shop, which is something that's fun to do, just not every day, right? So you have to change your mindset. You have to kind of look at it like a game or a challenge or fun. How can I make my life as enjoyable as possible on as little as possible? The second thing is getting out of debt. You must get out of debt. If you have credit cards, you have to get rid of those credit cards. They will eat you alive. The interest on those credit cards is usually somewhere to 9 to 29%. And that's just, you cannot go into retirement with that, especially if all you have is Social Security. So here's some things you can do to get out of debt. You can downsize your house. Most people our age have a home and they have some equity in it. If that is you, you can downsize your house. You'll have less taxes. You'll have less insurance. You'll have less utilities. You'll probably have less maintenance. I mean, think about when you need to put new floors in, it's going to be less floors. If you need to put a roof on, it's cheaper. So think about downsizing your house. This is a crazy market right now, but if you will look for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, you will be surprised that those houses tend to not go up as much as houses that are more sought after. We're not talking about you getting a house for resale. We're talking about you getting a house that fits your budget. And I would recommend that be no more than a quarter of your projected retirement income or your income now. If you project that your income is going to drop in half and you get something that's a quarter of your income now, it's going to be half your income later. Don't do that. If you are 50 years old, do not take out a 30-year loan that you can't pay off early. So downsize that house, get a cheaper house. The next one is part of this is to sell, to downsize the car. If you're driving the BMW and you have $10,000 in equity on it, sell the BMW and buy a $10,000 Honda. I'm not kidding. You have got to again, more expensive cars are more expensive to work on. Paying interest in payments is interest in payments that are not coming to you. And that is people don't think anything about having a $550 car payment, but will not put $550 into a traditional IRA. My husband and I are self-employed. He does have a job at the court, but he doesn't have a good retirement system there except for the pension. So we have IRAs and we max those out every month. It's $583 a month in Vanguard low-cost index funds. We do not have an account manager. I do them ourselves. It's really easy, and I would recommend that you look at the Simple Path to Wealth. But before we go into that, I just want to back up and say number 1 was mindset. Number 2 is get out of debt. Downsize your house. Downsize your car. And if you're just sitting there thinking, I can't do that, you don't have to do all of it, but you might. My mama did. My mom downsized her house, and that was really helpful because it gave her the ability to get out of some debt and to get a really cute house not too far away. And she was able to have a house payment that was about half of what she had before, and it's just adorable. So sometimes we're so afraid of making a change, the fear stops us, but the reality of it is it's not that bad. And it might even be better. So getting out of debt, selling all the crap you don't need. Also, do you really want to be weighed down? The more you have, the more you have to take care of. So number 3 is save. Once you've gotten out of debt, or while you're even in this case, even if you're in debt, I would recommend that you save. At least if you have a 401k at work, at least get the match. But don't do anything else above that while you're getting out of debt. And then you want to make sure to save. I am a big believer in a minimum of a 1-year emergency fund. While you're getting out of debt, at least start with a 3-month emergency fund and then work heavily on getting out of debt, building a 1-year emergency fund. As you get closer to retirement, you want to build what's called a bridge account. If you're going to retire earlier than your full retirement age, I would recommend saving enough money to support you before, or to work part-time before you take full Social Security. For me, it is age 67. I plan on retiring at age 55, but because I'm probably going to take my retirement early because my husband's the breadwinner, and I will be able, if something happened to him, to use his retirement, which is higher. It makes sense. I also have a disabled child that I support, and when I retire, it changes his disability, and that will be a bill I don't have to help with so much. So that's a long story I don't want to get into, but if you have questions, you can ask me down below. So mindset, get out of debt, save. I would recommend you start with 25% of your income. And if you're like, Courtney, you're crazy. Well, look at your bills, look at all of the bills that you have to pay, and start thinking, how can I cut these 25%? If you have a house payment of $1,000 a month, well, you could cut that down to $750. If you have a car payment of $500 a month, could you possibly get rid of that car and pay cash for something? Or get something with a down payment of a car payment of maybe $250, $300. If you can't do perfect like cash, do better. Always think of what's the next best thing I can do. So investing, again, I just told you earlier, I invest with Vanguard. Fidelity and Schwab are good too. But you need to make sure, I would not go with any account manager that charged over 0.5% in managed assets, meaning they're going to charge you over 0.5%. 1% in managed assets can cost you over the lifetime of your portfolio up to 30% of your retirement savings. I'm going to recommend you read the book, The Simple Path to Wealth, or look it up on YouTube. But I have done very good since I took my accounts out of assets under management. I've missed out on so much money by leaving them there. They just sat stagnant, even in a bull market when things were growing. And I just knew like something's wrong. The market's growing, but my accounts aren't growing. Well, that is because I was being charged so many fees, and they're often so hidden that you would have to be an expert to be able to find them all. Once I got out of that, my assets have doubled. With me putting only maxed out the last 3 years, and with me putting just a little bit in. So I'm extremely happy since I moved to index funds, and those match the S&P 500. So the top 500 companies in the United States are in the S&P 500, and if one of those fails, it's going to fall off and another one's going to come in. So you're just basically going with whatever the stock market is. You're not trying to be a day trader, and it's the long-term. Get in there, make a monthly contribution, and set it and forget it. So that's what we do, and we're very happy. I have one for my husband as well. Number 5 is spend wisely. Please, I beg of you, those deals where it's 0 APR, the reason they do that and how they make money on that is because people tend to spend more money when they do the 0 APR. So if you go to buy, this is my iPhone 7, it's pathetic, but you go to buy your fancy new iPhone, and it's, let's say you're going to get an iPhone 13, and it's, I don't know how much they are, let's say $1,200, but you wouldn't go pay $1,200 for it. You wouldn't take $1,200 out of your account, pay for it. Well, you probably don't need that iPhone. If you're willing to pay $300 or $400, you can get a very decent, good used iPhone. You can buy an iPhone 11 now for $300 or $400. Like, when did those come out? Last year? I mean, it's ridiculous that we just constantly pay so much money for something that's going to drop in value so quickly. So I'm getting ready to update to an 11 from my 7 because it's so cheap now to get an 11, and like they've just dropped in value so much. So, but I never finance anything, not even with 0 APR. I always, and if I was to do something like that, which I can't think of an instance where I have, I would make sure I had the money in the bank. But honestly, I just wouldn't. Even using credit cards is something that I do to use the points, but I do it very strategically. And for the past couple of years, I've traveled with credit cards, but I did get the sense that I was probably spending more using credit cards. So as inflation went up, I decided to do a little experiment of giving me and my husband a total of $600 every 2 weeks to buy groceries, eat out, and everything we need. And I noticed that I was paying a lot more attention at the grocery store, that I didn't even realize what the prices of some things were because I was just going and getting what we need. And because we're whole food plant-based, our diet doesn't include meat or dairy. So I just was like, well, we eat pretty cheap, you know. But man, by using cash, I have really come to understand how easy it is to just swipe that card and not know. So for now, I have taken a break from using my credit cards, except for a very big purchase, because that will give me the points. The other day, I had a $400 purchase. I paid it, and I'll turn around and pay it. I'll use the credit card, turn around, pay it off, because that gives me a lot of points to travel. And I'm not going to get into travel hacking right now, but spend wisely. If you cannot afford to pay cash for it, do not buy it. You do not need it. Most of us have our needs met, and other than your needs, you don't need something else. Make it work. Like for a while there, our mattress was really bothering us, so I bought like a 2-inch cool foam gel pad and put it on it, and it became the most comfortable mattress in the world. My husband and I just bought our first mattress 11 years into being together, and that was the first mattress I had ever purchased new. That's a long story in itself. But we paid $1,300 for it cash, and we did our homework before we bought it. And we did not do that until we had just paid our house off. Okay, the next thing is you have to be diligent. You have to be extremely patient and diligent. It's just like dieting. Sometimes you're going to screw up and you're going to have that cheeseburger and french fries, or you're going to want to. There's going to be times. We all come into large sums of money now and again. You get that insurance check back, or you get an unexpected tax return. I mean, my husband and I never get a tax return. This year we got a tax return. We overpaid last year. And they sent us this huge tax return. Well, in our situation, I just paid some bills and put it in the bank. But in the past, what I would do when I was getting out of debt is I would allocate a portion of it for debt, a portion of it for savings, and a portion of it for fun. There was a time where when I was raising 4 kids by myself as a single mom, I would put a portion of it into like house repairs or something like that. It doesn't matter how you do it. Just allocate it so that you don't feel super deprived. Number 7 is find free or cheap entertainment. My friend and I are getting ready to go to a movie at the library. It's free. We probably will go get a juice or something after, but I'm going to give myself a $20 limit today for spending. And I like to read, exercise, make YouTube videos. I'm taking a course online right now about YouTube that costs me very little. Anything like that I can learn, go for walks in the park. You can find ways to entertain yourself that do not cost a lot of money, and I highly recommend you do that. The other thing is when you are older, you have to have a plan for life's big changes. So if you are married, you need to have a plan for what if something happens to you. You certainly don't want to leave your kids in a situation where they're going to have to pay for your funeral out of their pocket. You don't want to leave them in a situation where they're stressed and worried or they have to take care of you. You also don't want to leave your spouse, if you have a spouse or partner, in a situation where if your income goes away, they would be forced to move or sell. That is part of our plan, and I'm okay with it because I don't want a 40-acre ranch by myself if something happened to my husband. But we have a plan for if either one of us passes away, what is going to happen. And I'm very adamant about that because I've seen my mother lose 2 husbands, and both my grandmother's husbands passed away before them, and what that did to them. So have a plan that's sensible and reasonable, and have some cash available to pay for those expenses that if it took a while, say, to sell the house, what that person would do, because you don't want to be worried about money when you're also grieving. At the end of the day, all of this is about reducing your financial load for when you retire and having more invested so that you will have some money to pull off your investments to supplement your pension or Social Security. The average Social Security check is somewhere around $1,300 to $1,700 a month. That's not enough for most people to live on. It might be if you had no debt whatsoever. So be mindful of that. And if one spouse dies, you don't get the other person's Social Security check. You get the higher earner's Social Security benefit. So if my husband's getting $2,000, his is actually $1,600, and mine is $800, then when he passed, I would get the $1,600. But if I passed, he would still stick with the $1,600. I hope that makes sense. And you cannot draw Social Security off of a deceased loved one unless you have a dependent that's under 18 until you're 60 years old. So make sure you have a plan for those things. Again, you want to reduce your debt. You want to look at what your income is going to be in retirement. And on your investments, it's 4% of what you have put away. So if you have $500,000, you're going to be able to draw $20,000 off of that money. That's how you do it without running out of money. So that's called the Trinity study, and it shows that 4% you can draw that amount off per year. You take it one lump sum or monthly or however you want to do it, and that will keep your money from dropping. So that would provide you $20,000 for life. Now, as you get to where you don't have many years left, if you needed to do something with that money, you could think about it, especially if you were terminally ill or something like that. But that's not what this video is about today. So get started. Start working on that mindset. Get out of debt. Start downsizing. Save. Look at every bill you have, from your subscriptions to your car payment. Can you get your insurance down? And try to get yourself in better shape so that you have a better future. You got to start thinking about your future self. But not only your future self, but the people who love and care about you. You don't want them to have to take care of you and to feel responsible for you. And that can often cause resentment as well. So I hope this has been helpful. If you've stuck this long, I appreciate it. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.